Welcome to this explainer. So today we're diving into something pretty incredible. We're going to unpack centuries of historical data, archival records, and modern business success to uncover the ultimate secret to business survival. And spoiler alert, it's all about continuous adaptation. We're looking at a story that spans nearly 3 centuries. It's a timeline that absolutely proves that while the products we sell, the marketing we use, and the technologies we rely on might constantly change, the fundamental laws of commerce and human resilience, they stay remarkably constant. So get ready to completely rethink how legacy is built.
Now, you might be wondering, what exactly does a 1742 colonial merchant have in common with a modern beauty brand? Well, it's a fascinating question. Let's bridge the themes of resilience and epic disruptions to figure this out. If you take a look at J.P. Morgan's recent Next list, you'll immediately see this deep fascination with navigating change. You've got books like Scott D. Anthony's Epic Disruptions, tracking how bold thinkers navigate world-changing ideas, and Bobby Brown's memoir, Still Bobby, providing an absolute masterclass in personal reinvention. And we are going to see these exact same themes play out in real time, not just over a single career, but across this massive, sweeping historical narrative of one incredibly resilient American brand.
It's literally like looking at 2 different worlds when you contrast the origins with the present day. Picture the reality of 1742 New York for a second. You're standing amidst these heavy wooden counters and stacked barrels, watching clerks fill out handwritten ledgers. The whole supply chain completely depends on whether a wooden ship survives a transatlantic storm. Now, contrast that gritty scene with today's reality. We're talking live television broadcasts to millions on QVC, global e-commerce logistics, and a massive buyout. Back in 2021, the modern iteration of this brand, Beekman 1802, sold a majority stake to Eurazeo, which is a massive European private equity firm managing 35 billion euros in assets. Going from wooden storefronts relying on wind power to a multi-million-dollar global lifestyle acquisition, that is a staggering leap. How on earth did they do it? Section 1. The deep roots, mastering cycles. To truly understand this cycle of reinvention, we have to dig deep into the archival material. Thanks to NYU Special Collections, we can actually see how this family mastered the inevitable cycles of commerce over generations, surviving recessions, wars, and massive technological shifts. Let's actually map out the epic disruptions the Beekman name has survived over the centuries. It all starts way back in 1647 when Dr. William Beekman arrived in the wild frontier colony of New Netherlands alongside Petrus Stuyvesant. Flash forward a bit to 1742, and W.A. Beekman & Company was officially founded right in the thick of a bustling colonial New York economy. And get this, they managed to survive the American Revolution in 1776. That was a massive upheaval where their very own estates were occupied by British commanders. And, as we're going to see in just a bit, the brand's modern rebirth was sparked by yet another massive global disruption, the Great Recession of 2008. It really goes to show that the fundamentals of commerce and adaptation stay constant no matter what century you're in. The original colonial business was built on one incredibly simple, face-to-face mercantile principle: find what people need and make sure they can get it. Honestly, long before Amazon algorithms and mega supermarkets, a successful merchant just had to intuitively anticipate what their community needed. Whether that was importing fine cloth, securing food staples, or stocking iron tools, the merchant was the critical link between the chaotic wider world and the isolated local family. This specific principle is the beating heart of all successful commerce. It drove the colonial economy, and it is exactly what still drives customer-centric businesses today. What really brings this history to vivid life are the actual people hidden in those NYU archives. Take Jane Cateltus Beekman, for example. She married into the family in 1752. While her husband, James, was out dealing with the absolute geopolitical nightmare of the Revolutionary War, Jane stepped up. She demonstrated this remarkable, steady business acumen, managing the day-to-day mercantile operations and keeping the family business afloat during wartime. And she did all of this while simultaneously raising between 10 and 12 children and meticulously coordinating their educations. Talk about an unsung pioneer. She was balancing commerce and family in a time of unprecedented chaos. And here is the crucial point. As the company navigated the American Revolution, and later the sweeping changes of the Industrial Revolution, with its brand new railroads, steamships, and mass retail, they realized a really hard truth. Clinging to the past was a guaranteed recipe for failure. The old way of doing business was just disappearing right before their eyes. To survive fundamentally shifting economies, you cannot just blindly rely on your legacy. Tradition alone isn't enough. You absolutely have to evolve. Which brings us to Section 2, an epic, modern disruption, the Great Recession of 2008. Let's move to a modern era and see how this perfectly mirrors the themes in Scott D. Anthony's J.P. Morgan reading list book. Because sometimes the biggest innovations start with a deeply personal crisis. The modern Beekman 1802 brand evolved through some wild, serendipitous steps. Picture this. In 2008, two New Yorkers, Brent Ridge and Josh Kilmer Perciel, abruptly lost their high-powered corporate jobs during the crash of the Great Recession. They had previously bought an old farm in Sharon Springs, New York, just as a weekend getaway. But suddenly, that farm was their absolute lifeline. One day, totally out of the blue, they found a note in their mailbox from a stranger named Farmer John. John was losing his own farm and desperately needed a place for his herd of goats. Amazingly, they took the goats in. Needing to pay their massive mortgage, they literally started Googling what to make with goat milk. They learned to make soap in their basement with a neighbor, and step by step, that frantic basement operation turned into a sprawling global lifestyle brand. Okay, Section 3, the power of community, rebuilding the mercantile on Main Street. What is truly remarkable here is how their own personal job loss led to a complete, full-circle reinvention of that exact 18th century mercantile model, right in Sharon Springs. Just like the early colonial merchants who relied on local tradesmen, Brent and Josh started building a massive local ecosystem by partnering with their own neighbors. When they suddenly needed hen towels to sell alongside their new goat milk soap, a neighbor who was a skilled weaver stepped up. And it actually turned out she was Farmer John's sister. From there, the network just exploded. She introduced them to a local blacksmith, who introduced them to a potter, and then a fantastic jam maker. Before they even fully realized what was happening, they had organically resurrected the original colonial merchant's concept, sourcing and selling the high-quality goods that their own local community was making. By combining this rich local craftsmanship with Brent's keen advertising expertise, they elevated their neighbors' hard work to a massive national audience. They actually went out and bought the town's original boarded-up mercantile building and opened its doors once again. They took these beautiful, locally sourced goods to massive broadcast platforms like HSN and QVC. And here's the best part. By making the crucial decision to keep their warehouse and e-commerce fulfillment right there in Sharon Springs, they shipped out enough daily packages to literally save the town's local post office from closing permanently. They completely revitalized what was practically a ghost town, all by empowering the people already living there. Section 4. The Secret to Survival. Carrying the Past Forward. This brings us to the ultimate takeaway from a colonial brand scaling into a modern beauty empire backed by European private equity. And a quick fun fact, Eurazeo, the firm that bought them, started out in the 1880s as a French water and gas company before brilliantly pivoting into global investment. And this just brilliantly illustrates that the oldest, most legendary businesses survive because they actively change with the times. They don't fight against them. A brand with nearly 300 years of heritage doesn't stay alive by doing the exact same thing it did in 1742. History is a living, breathing thing. Sometimes history is thriving right inside a highly adaptive modern business model. It proves that legacy isn't some static object. It is an ongoing process of renewal. Whether we're talking about Jane Kettletoss Beekman's 18th century ledgers during the Revolutionary War, or modern bars of goat milk soap being wrapped by hand at a dining room table after the 2008 crash, true resilience reveals itself. It's about confidently starting a brand new chapter while deeply honoring your roots. You don't hold on to the past like a heavy anchor weighing you down. Instead, you carry the past forward. It's like a guiding torch to light your way into the future. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. Looking at this sweeping story from colonial ship delays in the 1700s to the devastating 2008 financial crash, disruption is clearly the only true constant in life and business. So, when the world inevitably changes around you, how are you going to adapt to your own epic disruptions? Will you stubbornly hold on to the past, or will you find a way to use it to boldly reinvent your future? Something to think about. Thanks for hanging out with us, and keep learning.